Hello, everyone. This is David Ellis from UCM Media, and today I am joined once again by Patty Lucia. Patty is a podcaster, an author, and a woman of many, many, many talents. And she's joining us here, and we're going to be giving you the week in news and a breakdown of what we think and what we don't think. And you are welcome to comment, like, subscribe, or leave nasty comments if you feel the need to do so.
If you need to vent.
If you need to vent. Before we begin this program, we have pretty much three main things that happened in this week, and we want to share this stuff with you. Patty, let the audience know anything you need to know about who you are.
All right. Well, David, as always, it's so nice to be with you this Sunday afternoon. That's at least when we're recording this. And yeah, life is, I was telling David just a few minutes ago that I'm wearing a boot. So I have a boot on during this, and because I have a hairline fracture in my ankle, and that's from over running. And David has already scolded me. So please, if people are going to leave a comment about how I shouldn't be running, David, believe me, has already scolded me for that. So at any rate, so here I am in a boot, but still cheery, still happy to be here. And, looking forward to jumping into the items of the week. I mean, there is, it's rapid fire these days, David. I mean, it's just coming, it's just coming at us. I know we'll touch upon a few topics, but there's just a boatload of them. So, but yeah, let's dig into it and kind of see if we can unpack this and maybe, find some humor along the way.
All right. So we have really three main things that happened this week. The first was Elon Musk and the Twitter takeover and what he's doing with the employees at Twitter. The midterms are going to be next week, so we're airing this broadcast, and we're probably going to let you guys know what is going on where that is concerned. I believe the elections are on Tuesdays. Is that correct?
Yes. Tomorrow. Well, yes, Tuesday. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is basically what we are doing, and what we want to say is, before we start this broadcast, we want you guys to know this is not a leftist broadcast. This is not a right-leaning broadcast. We don't care what side of the fence you live on where this stuff is concerned. I don't care what side of the fence. Now, Patty has her views and I have my views. Sometimes we don't agree. Sometimes we agree, but we still talk. And the purpose of this broadcast was to give people the ability to speak. So as I said before, we're going to be sending this broadcast live so that you guys can come and interact with us in the near future. But what we want to say right now, right here, is that we don't really care about the political spectrum, but we do care about what goes on in society. And if you're particularly spiritually inclined, you really should theoretically care about your fellow man. Mm-hmm. Including yourself. And so, shall we begin with the first news story?
Let's jump in.
Good. I'm just going to put this on screen.
In the meantime, one of our other main stories, big changes are expected at Twitter. The social media platform's employees are due to find any minute now whether they still have a job, as Elon Musk, who bought the company for $44 billion, looks to take it in a different direction. So,
Patty, can you imagine buying something for $44 billion?
Yeah, and on top of that $44 billion is about twice as much as what it's worth, actually. So
yeah, you must have really wanted to prove a point. I have to give this man some credit. When he wants to prove a point, he proves that point. Mm-hmm. And so I believe he was forced into buying Twitter for that price because they sued him after he tried to pull out of the deal. Yeah. And that's neither here nor there. But it's very interesting because it's going to get more interesting as this story continues.
Company offices have already been temporarily closed and staff have been denied access to IT systems. The social media firm says the cuts are intended to put it on a healthy path. Elon Musk has directed Twitter's teams to find up to $1 billion in annual savings. And he is looking apparently to cut around 3,700 staff from the payroll of Twitter. That's about half the workforce. Some of them have already started legal proceedings.
Okay. For those of you who don't know, what has happened is that Twitter, like most social media giants, it became overrun with people who were more left of the spectrum. So to say that Twitter is an impartial platform would be nonsense. To say that YouTube is an impartial platform, that's nonsense.
Absolutely.
Okay, nobody actually believes that. They're not impartial by any stretch of the imagination. They tend to lean a little bit more left, and there's nothing wrong with that because they're private companies and private companies can do whatever they want. As to the ethical nature of that, it's questionable, right? Because if you're trying to silence certain kinds of views, then that's not necessarily the best thing. But if it is that you're genuinely trying to make a better society by curbing hate speech, as an example, and we're going to get into that discussion, Patty, as soon as this is done. I know you have a lot to say where that is concerned, but let me just finish this news story.
But given Twitter's influence, there are real concerns about what all of this might mean for regulating hate speech, which has been an issue for some time on the platform. Earlier, we heard from Simon Bauman, who was a senior community manager until today, as he believes that he has been fired by Twitter.
In the early hours of the UK time, an email was sent out to everybody at the company saying there was about to be a large reduction in headcount, and that if we were to be affected by it, we'd hear to our personal email, and if not, to our work email. And it was about an hour after that I noticed that my work laptop was remotely wiped, and access to work Gmail and G Suite and Slack was all revoked as well. Spoke to a few colleagues who were seeing the same thing, and that's where we are.
How did you?
Okay, I think we've heard enough about this guy. Now, I want to laugh a little bit at this entire situation. I want to laugh, and I don't want to laugh at the man losing his job. Okay? But I do want to laugh at the way that Elon Musk operates. So this man is like the head troll of everything. He walked into Twitter with a sink.
I love that. I you know what? One of these days, we're going to find that sink being auctioned off at Sotheby's for some ungodly amount of money. I honestly, I'm looking forward to that day. And then it'll be all in the papers and everything. That sink is it's not the last we've seen of that sink. Anyway.
No. And you know what's kind of funny? This is the kind of thing that we really want to get into here, because we're a network. I'm going to provide one side of this story, and I'm assuming that you're going to provide the other side. Listen, so what had happened in the social media spectrum is that they invented this concept called hate speech. Hate speech is when you actively incite violence against certain groups. Now, here's the problem with the hate speech. You get lost in the definitions of what hate speech is and what violence is.
Absolutely.
So they're redefining terms. We know what violence is. Violence is when you undertake a stance of aggression, continuous aggression, which usually is physical aggression against another group. So I have seen a sliding scale of definitions, and English language is not supposed to operate that way. Okay? So for me, as an example, if somebody calls me a name, as an example, it sticks and stones for me. Okay. It stops up until the point in time where you actively contact my body.
Right.
Then we have a problem. Okay. But you could shout from the rooftops, whatever. You could absolutely do that thing. You may not like the way I look or whatever else, but it stops at my nose. Your right to express yourself stops when your fist nears my nostril. Okay? And so the sliding scale of aggressions, they first thought about microaggressions.
Yeah.
Okay? So microaggression, as an example, is when it is that I walk into a store or whatever else, and I see someone standing there, and I ask that person, "Can you help me?" And the person says, "Why would you assume that I work here?" That's a microaggression.
Right, exactly.
That's number one. Number two, violence became defined as a number of things. So for a certain group who are now going after people, and we said this before, but the LGBT community is saying that silence, as in not having a stance on an issue, is violence. Okay, I want to say something here. If I choose to remain center and not be on the side of the left or the side of the right, then I am not being violent. I am being neutral. But apparently that doesn't register. And Patty, I want to get your take on it.
Yeah, because I think it's, ideologically, and last time we got together, I talked a little bit about how everything is moving in the direction of creating two camps, the oppressed and the oppressor. So we're getting squeezed and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And so this is one of the ways that they use these ideological weapons and the weapons of language to squeeze us into taking a position. You can't not take a position. Like it wasn't good enough not to be against racism. You had to actually be an anti-racist. Like the only right position would be to be an anti-racist. And so when it comes to the LGBT community, the only right position is you have to take this position. If you're silent on it, that's violence. If you mispronoun, if you misgender someone, that's violence. If you, or worse, if you don't, if you think that perhaps we should slow down on the operations of children with hormone blockers and mastectomies and so forth, that's violence. And so I think that is the direction that we are moving into. If you are, so the whole twisting and turning of the definitions of what hate is and what violence is a way to squeeze us into one of two groups.
Yeah, and I see this to a certain extent when social media giants decided to regulate hate speech on their platforms. Once again, it's a good intention, but I believe that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So as an example, you had a riot in the US with the January 6th, and Twitter was used as an incentivizing tool. And it was used as an inflammatory platform for people committing real violence. And so I understand that. But we've gotten into a dynamic whereby you're broadening the scope from one event to everything that you can imagine, and you're taking license where you absolutely shouldn't. So as an example, if there are two people arguing on Twitter, right, it might be somebody who's really, really left and somebody who's really, really right. Okay. I think both extremes, whether you're extreme left or you're extreme right, lead to idiocy. Okay. Because it's polarization. And I believe that when they start to argue, we have seen that social media generally tends to favor the people on the left, and it's playing out in real time in front of us, especially when some hot topics are concerned. You just mentioned the LGBTQ issue. And so dare no one say anything against that or anything against any agenda that is played out. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, including people who would be seen as members of the LGBTQ community.
Correct.
So if you are, if you're gay, if you're lesbian, and you say, hey, this is, I think this is grooming, or hey, there's we're pushing way too hard on this transgender stuff, and it is really hurting children. Right. So if you're really about protecting children, I think we need to look at how some of this can be really damaging for children. So if you even say things like that, then you are, then the anger and the aggression towards you is even more intense. It is even within the gay community. For instance, if you're a lesbian and you say, hey, I'm attracted to women now, right? 10, 20 years ago, that would be like, duh, right? But actually, that's a problem now within the LGBTQ community, because that basically what you're saying is then you're not attracted to a trans woman. And it's like, well,
you see, these are the kinds of views that Musk's wanted to eliminate when he took over Twitter.
Yeah,
and
I fully support that
polarization kind of debate. So here's my view where Musk is concerned. He's a billionaire and he's a bit of an idiot on a lot of things. I can tell that he has the arrogance of a billionaire. He does have some arrogance on board for sure, but then arrogance. Is it arrogance or a healthy dose of self-esteem? I'm not quite sure, because he has accomplished quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Right, but the fact remains that I kind of are suspicious when certain people who are in the public eye decide that they're going down the line of virtuous campaigning. So he's taken over Twitter, and he's instituted an $8 fee for people to become verified, which is hilarious to me.
I love that. I love that, actually. I think that's awesome.
All right.
I do, because yeah, I mean, I do, because honestly, the advertisers of Twitter have kind of been trying to play hardball. It's like, yeah, well, we're gonna freeze you out. We're gonna destroy your company because we're gonna pull out our ads. But if he can establish that Twitter doesn't have the same kind of need for advertising, that's awesome.
Yeah. Correct. All the moves he's making are fairly offensive, like firing half the staff. How do I feel about that? I have mixed feelings about that. People losing their jobs is never a good thing, unless, of course, the people losing their jobs are people that were actually trying to stifle the ability of people to speak. Then I don't feel that sorry. I will be very honest with you. Okay? And so I think my personal opinion is, from what I see on the whole of social media, and this includes YouTube, that went on this complete campaign about getting rid of a whole bunch of content creators on YouTube. The way I feel about that is that social media giants have overstepped. They have overstepped. And I understand that they're private companies and they can do whatever they want with their platform. However, they are a social force in society, especially YouTube.
Yeah.
So because they are a social force in society that can influence elections, power dynamics, and so on, a lot of these fringe groups would not have had any kind of power if it wasn't for social media spreading stuff. So I have that they're a private company and they should be allowed to do whatever they want to do. I don't know. I'm not too keen on that idea, because they have wielded they've wielded a kind of force over society which has not been a positive force.
And let's face it, I have a couple comments on what you were just saying. But first, they have an open relationship with the United States government. They take their orders. There are the emails to prove it. That if there are accounts that need to be watched or taken down, if this administration wants it, then Facebook definitely will do that. Zuckerberg has practically come out and said it. Mm-hmm. So what we're finding out is that there are some back doors into these platforms for government. And so I think there's more that's going to be exposed about this, but there's been a relationship between these these big tech companies, social media companies, with government that has been obviously completely inappropriate, because if they're censoring on behalf of the United States government, then they're functioning as an arm of the government, and that is censorship and unconstitutional. So that, I think, is going to kind of come. That's going to. I think we'll probably see lawsuits about that, and I think something did happen in Texas where they did pass a law that social platforms in Texas cannot discriminate based on political affiliation, political ideology. So I think we're going to start seeing more of that throughout the states. I also, just in terms of the layoffs, these big tech companies are all laying off. This is now what's happening across the board. They are all having to do this. It's kind of a new day for these social media platforms, these social media giants. So they are all Google, Facebook, YouTube. I believe that they are all laying workers off at this point. So I think it's kind of interesting that, Musk comes into Twitter, and I think Twitter probably had more fat than a lot of them. It seemed completely ridiculous, like what was going on there, and everything seemed to be inflated and bloated and beyond what was really going on. With the bots and the things like that, like how many accounts are bots. And so, but that is a trend with, I think almost all of the social media giants, is that they're all laying off. And a lot of this may have to do with inflation, with cutting costs, with having to kind of deal with the new economy, which we're going to talk about a little bit. But this is what happens in a recession.
Yeah, that is correct. And so from a spiritual perspective, because I want to take the spiritual perspective, if you're a spiritual person and you're interacting with social media, I want to give you guys a warning, because part of my background is into data science. I want to give you guys a warning. Your voices or your businesses or your accounts, you will be marginalized very soon and in short order.
Yeah.
Because the spiritual community are one of the last vestiges of free thinking that exists out there. And I want you guys to hear me. If you notice that you guys are being marginalized, it's not your imagination, right? As content creators, as people who put ideas out there, especially ideas about unity, you are bad for business on a social media platform. If you put out a message about unity and stop the nonsense with the hate this and the hate that and the left and the right, you are bad for business on a social media platform, because these platforms run on toxicity.
Yes.
And energy harvesting. And so imagine a social media platform where everybody played nice and everybody was just sharing pictures of their family and friends.
Right.
It wouldn't work.
No.
So they needed to put the division, the hate, and the toxicity in. And I'm talking about all of them. All of them do that. So you can't escape this political nonsense. So what I want the spiritual folk to know is that you have to keep your center where this is concerned. Because the other part of social media is that it's a brainwashing tool, a very effective one. You repeat the message long enough and people will move. They're trying to move you off center to the left or to the right, which is why every time I come on a broadcast, I say left and right, same damn thing. They're both idiots. They're both. Because you're fighting over things you're not supposed to be fighting over. Why can't you all meet somewhere in the middle and try to sort things out? And yeah, that's my spiel where that is concerned. I think all of this is going to be settled on our next topic, which is the midterms. Oh my God. Oh,
The midterms. Yeah. The tsunami.
yes. Now, before we continue, I like making things simple for people. I have always liked making things simple for people. So I'm going to put the issues on the table. If you have a pen and paper at home, get yourself a pen and paper, and I'm going to make this really simple for you. Write down whoever you are. Patty is a white woman, right? I am a black male. If you're Latino, write it down. Your sex, your gender, and whatever. Because depending on where you are or what you are, whatever candidate that you elect might affect you in the following ways. And there are no easy answers. If you are a cis male, if you are male and you are heterosexual, the chances are electing a Democrat might not be in your favor, especially if you intend to have kids and send them to school. Because what the Democrats have done is pushed a woke agenda.
Yeah.
If you are, however, a black male immigrant to the US, putting a Republican in power might not be in your best interest. Okay?
Is that a legal immigrant or illegal immigrant?
Does it really matter? Because
Probably.
here's the problem. Here's the problem on the Republican side. The problem on the Democrat side is that they have a bunch of woke cancel culture idiots, which they keep promoting at all levels. People want to watch Netflix. They might not want certain things in front of their faces. They need to get the choice. So they've been pushing this woke agenda, and it has not played out very well for them. The Republicans have been pushing a certain kind of agenda, and they have been hijacked to a certain degree by racist elements. They always have been. And this is where no easy answers come in. Because if you're a black male immigrant, as an example, or a Latino male immigrant, you probably grew up in a Catholic country 9 times out of 10, and you have a certain kind of moral structure that you abide by. And if you abide by that moral structure, putting a Democrat in power just because you want to save yourself from the racist elements of the Republican Party means that your moral structure is going to be challenged every day that they are in power. Real talk, straight and plain.
I will add to this, though, just an addendum, that the Democratic Party is a party that has been, in some ways, even more racist on the DL. All right. So since the Civil War, because it was really the Democrats who supported.
Yeah, but Patty, once again,
not the Republicans.
We can only go by what's on the surface. So here's the problem that we see. We only see the surface when it is politics involved. People don't get into the nuances of stuff. So let's just keep it simple. When you have Nazis and so on out in the streets marching like in Charlottesville and so on, and saying that they represent the Republicans and they're voting Republican and so on, and then the Democrats are condemning it. So people, that's what they see. On the other hand, if you are a regular white male in the US right now, and you're looking at these woke idiots marching on the streets, saying that you're evil just because of the color of your skin,
doesn't really leave you anywhere to go.
It doesn't leave you anywhere to go because you know they don't like you. You know they don't like you on the surface, and they say it. And I don't understand why both parties haven't taken control over the fringe elements that have hijacked their parties. because people are no longer voting on a lot of issues. They're voting on the worst parts of both parties. Okay.
Well, you know what?
You don't want that woke stuff in your schools, your kids' schools.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Well, I mean, I think the woke stuff is definitely pushed by some pretty powerful forces in our world. I think it's part of a global agenda. So there's a lot of money behind it. There's a lot of power behind it. But the thing is that both parties lack vision. And so if you lack vision, and that you're no matter what spectrum of the political, wherever you are on the political spectrum, if you lack vision, then your party is going to be more vulnerable to fringe elements who are extremely vocal and have a vision. So they have a vision and they're pushing it and they've got a lot behind them, and you are, and you don't have a spine. So if the parties, and what's happened, and I think why both parties are spineless is because of the level of corruption in both, is because of, to the extent to which they don't really represent the people, they just represent, their own interests. So that's why they're in bed with the pharmaceutical companies and with major corporations. That's why they make laws that benefit them and not us. That's why the administration insisted on vaccine mandates when we didn't really need them, because our government is in bed with companies like Pfizer. And so is our media, in bed with them. So, I think they're just vulnerable to, these fringe elements coming in and just kind of stealing the show, upstaging them pretty much.
I think, money is a very important factor in anything, and the corporate influences in any country really do determine the course of law and so on, as opposed to the people. There's no we the people anymore. That's a gone case. Here is what I think with regard to this idea of having fringe elements hijack your political party. You are trying to appeal to. I'm hoping that the majority of people are just decent, law-abiding people who just want to be in the center. They want to be able to go over to their neighbor's house and not have a bunch of stuff in the back of their head as to what their neighbor's doing, what their neighbor believes in. They just want to live their lives peacefully. Right, exactly. But these fringe elements are not allowing that to happen on these political parties and social media, as an example of toxifying the hell out of society to the point where people can't remember what peace felt like. I ask people, especially when it is that I deal with people in a professional or clinical environment, can you remember when you were happy? What it felt like? And I'm talking about like prior to all of this, probably 1990s even. Not that that was any better, but the fact of the matter is people were a little bit more relaxed. Now,
freer. They were freer, more creative.
That's true.
And freewheeling.
They live in a vice grip right now.
Yeah. And I think, there was a shift after 9/11. Let's be honest. There was a shift, and it started kind of moving in a particular direction. And over the last few years, there's been a serious power grab, and we've seen it play out, and we see it play out in we see it playing out now in our country. So the midterms. So, it looks like it's going to be a red wave. It looks like there's been such pushback against woke ideology, and you have the mama bears. You have the parents coming out saying enough is enough in our schools. They want to protect their children from the kinds of, ideologies, destructive, toxic ideologies that are being taught in under the guise of, acceptance for all and protection of children and affirmation of who they are. And yet it's really, really destructive stuff and divisive stuff. So that they're doing with kids who are,
If you want to know what the yardstick is, and I say it to people, the yardstick is remember your own childhood. Mm-hmm. Remember what you felt like. Remember your own childhood and remember what you felt like. If you had a happy childhood and so on, then you want to provide that for your kids, I am hoping. What you don't want to do is inject anything into the equation, right, that will cause your children to be more confused or under pressure or look at other children, little children, differently, right? I keep saying it, leave the kids alone.
Leave them alone.
Leave those children alone. Don't try to steer them in one direction or another. Let them figure stuff out. Mm-hmm. We grew up figuring our stuff out. Yep. We were stronger for it. We fell on our faces. We got back up. Mm-hmm. Life was not easy. We had to learn that Patty is going to disagree with me. And just because Patty disagrees with me, I don't have to lose my mind and shout her down and go run and tell people that Patty disagrees with me and she should not be allowed to disagree with me. We had to learn to accept differences. Leave these children alone.
And we had to develop kind of a thick skin. You know what I mean? Like, we used to be told, sticks and stones may break your bones and names will never hurt you or whatever. Like whatever our parents would say to kind of bolster us for the world out there where, other kids are going to say mean things. And, sometimes they're going to say mean things. They're going to say mean things because of, how you look or, what you have or what you don't have or whatever it is. And you just have to hold your head up, so there's very little of that these days. Hold your head up.
I remember the phrase, suck it up, buttercup.
Suck it up, buttercup. Yeah. Yeah. And that was what valuable lessons those were.
Yes. Because the truth of the matter is, if you don't develop a certain amount of emotional and mental toughness, you're not going to survive. The world is harsh. I live in a climate which is extremely harsh. Okay? I'm looking outside my window right now as we are recording this broadcast, and there is a blizzard outside my window. Okay? And if I have to go to the supermarket, I am going to put on a coat, I'm going to put on a hat, and I'm going to trudge out there into that storm. What I will not do is try to cancel nature. Because you can't cancel nature. You may be able to cancel other people, but if when nature's ready for you, wherever you are, what are you going to say? Oh, it's unfair that there's a blizzard outside? It's so ridiculous. Yeah. And it's so stupid, some of the stuff that we hear on the news, that I honestly think that in this next generation, I weep for them.
I do too. I'm working with the next generation, and so what you're saying, what we're talking about is real. I work with high school students, and I was just talking to them literally this week. I'm like, okay, look, do you guys think it's normal that so many of you feel a bit depressed and so many adults feel depressed and people are walking around slumping and they're tired and they don't want to get out of bed and, this and that and the other? I said, look, I'm the one who should be, like, hey, I'm older, I'm the one who should be grumpy. Why am I not the one grumpy? And so I was sharing with them that I feel kind of sad that, so many of our young people have been affected so over the last couple of years, but it's really going to be up to them to lift themselves up, to recognize it's like, wow, I don't need to feel this way. I could feel better. What can I do? Maybe I should be more active. I could go out. I could be more active. I could be more social. I could go and talk to more people. A lot of them, are isolated and they're not social, and
if
they just want to stay in their rooms and they're on social media and all of that. And I'm like, look, it's proven. They proved it. The more time you spend on social media, the more apt you are to be depressed. So what are we going to do about that?
If they go out and socialize with people, there's a high possibility that people may not see things the way you do.
Yes.
And you have to deal with that. You are going to have to deal with that on a whole. But everything I see out there on social media, especially with a lot of children that are growing up, these children did not get messed up by themselves, right? They got it from the education system.
Oh, absolutely.
They got it from the education system. These children are on all sorts of antidepressants and so on.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, how old are you? Why are you 14 years old on antidepressants?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I see it. I see it.
Honestly, so these are the kinds of things that we see. And I'm like,
it's not okay. It's not okay for so many of our young people to be on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. That is not okay. And so I think we do. I think we do have a problem with, like the upcoming generation. And it's going to, and we're going to see it play out over the next few decades.
And as I said, with regard to the midterms, there are no easy answers. And I'll explain to you what it looks like right now is that people have gotten tired of all the woke stuff. And the other thing that we're going to be talking about in a little bit is the concept of money is a very important thing for most people. Money solves a lot of shit. And as a result of that, it looks like from all the polling and so on, that the Democrats are going to be
spanked.
That would be an understatement. And that would be it looks like they may lose the House and they may lose the Senate as well.
So long as so long as they're not spanked in a hateful way, like no hate speech while you're spanking. And I think everything will be all right. This is
significant because if they lose the House and the Senate and your Supreme Court is predominantly conservative, it doesn't matter who the president is at that point. Right. Okay, it doesn't matter who the president is at that point. That is a lot of power in the hands of conservative powers. And when that happens, a lot of women are going to be very unhappy because the agenda, ever since the overturning of Roe versus Wade, is to peel back abortion rights as an example. Okay. And a lot of women are going to probably be very unhappy with that because that was always on the conservative agenda, making abortion as difficult to access as possible. And so there's that. There's no easy answers. But then if you vote and the Democrats get in, then you got to worry about your kids in school. I'm sorry, but you do, because they're not going to peel that back.
No.
But I
do
it's everywhere. The governor down in your state did something this week in education.
What else did he do?
I saw the news.
Refresh my memory because I can't keep up with the guy.
Yeah, he circumvented the legal education board by making sure that
Yes, there were people who were upset because, I can't get that mastectomy for my 14-year-old in this state. I want my 14-year-old to have a double mastectomy. She deserves that. This is how she's going to affirm who she is. So, and that darn governor, he's not letting us do that. And it's kind of like, I'm sorry, but honestly, that's what it's. Say that again.
It becomes an issue when you figure out how much taxpayers are paying for your 14-year-old getting their breasts removed.
Oh,
It
yeah.
becomes an issue where that is concerned, and people don't have that kind of money to waste. Okay, so here's the problem. Here's the problem that it is. If you were living in Florida, you would have to pay partially for that double mastectomy that you're talking about. But here is the thing that is most important here. The economy is not the best for a lot of people. People are living hand to mouth everywhere, not just in the US, in Canada,
Right.
in Australia, all over the world. People are living hand to mouth. And here's the problem that we're seeing. We're seeing that people are beginning to vote based on who will give me or who will allow me access to more money so I can survive. Okay, so the economy is always going to be a big issue in any election. And unfortunately, and I should say fortunately, unfortunately, what has been recorded is that the Democrats apparently have created a lot more jobs, but they've also created inflation. I wouldn't say they created inflation. Inflation is something that happened. And
Yeah,
so,
well, yeah, though it does come from, just printing money endlessly at some point. The rooster's going to come. I mean, what is it that the hens are going to come home to? What is it again? They're going to come home to roost, basically. and so here we are. Here we are. So I don't think, like any household, and this is the thing, like you have to be aware of your budget. I have to be aware of my budget. Because if my budget's all whacked out, then I might not be able to keep my car on the road or a roof over my head or food on the table. And so if we as individuals can figure out how to do a budget within our means, then I don't. And I know that I'm super oversimplifying this, but it's like, why can't our government do that? Why is it that they are printing? You cannot print that much money and expect there not to be inflation. There's going to be inflation. And I'm not so sure about the jobs. Everybody was locked down and then people came back to their jobs. So how many of those jobs were just refilled again because they had been vacated, and how many of them were actually created? I don't know. And they play with the money, with the statistics so much, and play with numbers so much that you kind of look at it and they're throwing numbers at you. And it's like, I don't know if I believe any of this often.
All right, so let me make this simple. If you're experiencing penny pinching times,
yes,
then things are not good, okay? You just have to, you don't have to understand all the statistics. I don't have to teach you standard deviation. I don't have to teach you any of that stuff.
Right.
All you need to know is, am I living paycheck to paycheck, and am I living hand to mouth?
Right.
And then you will understand that the economy might not be in your favor. I remember the Hunger Games. May the odds forever be in your favor, but not really. And so I tend to think that people are probably going to be voting based on which party will bring them the most prosperity. And that is a really sad way to vote, because then morality gets thrown out the window in that instance. What do I think?
Okay, so are you talking about the hot button issues? So number one hot button issue is inflation, right? And so then what's next?
You see, once you put inflation on the table, everything tends to kind of peter out, because people, it used to be back in the day that people adjusted their monetary and spending habits based on their own moral code. Now it is that people are adjusting their moral code based on how much money they have. Okay? We have flipped things around. So if I don't have a lot of money, then, oh, I'm sorry. You see that group of people over there? Let's get rid of them. You understand? So I'll have more money. It has become a resource grab more than anything else.
But do you honestly think like the red wave is about people putting their morals aside and choosing money over morals.
No.
Because I actually think that the red wave is very much fueled by people's moral indignation.
Agreed. I'll tell you what the red wave is about. This red wave that is coming from all polling and so on. We can't say for certain that the Republicans will get it, but it looks like that's happening. And so I think that the red wave is because people are tired of being told that they're bad or evil people. People are tired
of being told that they are bad people.
Tired of being canceled, and people are tired of people telling them that they just lecturing to them, whether like you pay money to go see a movie as an example. Right. And I have to say that white guys get the worst of it. I'm sorry. Yeah. You pay money to go see a movie.
Currently, it's their turn. It's their turn now.
Right. Somebody is trying to push an agenda down my throat in a movie theater, and I'm a hypnotherapist. And
I just want to be entertained.
Right. Like, are you not entertained? No, I'm not entertained, right?
I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed.
I'm actually annoyed because I just went to see a movie and I have to come out of that movie with somebody telling me that I'm a piece of crap for being a man.
That's right. Great. You can't even go get entertained without somebody telling you you're a piece of shit. Great.
So, yeah, people are tired of that. And that was a very big error on the part of the people pushing this agenda. People get tired of you telling them they're pieces of shit and they are bad people and stuff like that. And they get tired and it's done. And people are like, it's done. I can't wait for elections. As soon as the elections come, I'm voting for anybody that'll be against you guys. And this is what they're doing. So a lot of what is happening there, people created this red wave. Right. I spoke to some friends of mine in the US. They are devout Muslim people. Okay. And they're from the Middle East. And they're telling me, oh, we're voting red. And I'm like,
absolutely.
Did I hear that wrong? Like, what do you mean you're voting red? What because
of what's going on in the schools.
Because we want to be able to send our kids to school.
That's right.
Not have our kids exposed to certain kinds of things that we don't agree with.
Absolutely.
And if you take offense at these people and you say that these people are bad people, then I am sorry, you are wrong in this. Because people love their children.
Absolutely.
They love their children.
And you know what really kills? You know what?
Ideology comes behind their love for their children.
Yeah. And you know what? A lot of these people, and I'm going to call out the LGBTQ community. A lot of these people who are pushing this agenda don't have children of their own.
Point.
All right. So now you have people who don't have children of their own taking some kind of high moral position about what other people who have chosen to have children should do with their children. I'm sorry, but that's like, no wonder of course they're going to be pushing back.
Because they're not actually, you see, experience is the greatest teacher. And so honestly speaking, even if you do have children of your own, you have absolutely no right in the world to tell any parent.
And you know what? Most parents don't.
Their children.
Because most parents won't do that because they don't want it being done to them, because they understand that there's a certain kind of respect you give a parent, even if you disagree with how they're raising their children. You don't want anybody coming up to you and saying, we want to tell you how to better raise your children. So then you're kind of not going to do it to others. But what's happening is a majority of this that's being pushed on parents is by people who do not have children themselves. And this is not lost on the parents. And this is also part of the pushback.
You're correct.
And rightly so, David, rightly so, I think.
I think that a lot of people tend to look at this kind of stuff with a sense of dread Like if you're starting to tell me how to raise my children and that I'm a bad person for not teaching them this or telling them that, then where does the line stop? And so that's why you see this backlash that's about to happen in the US.
Absolutely. It's about
Because people are tired of being called bad people for no reasons. These are people that are living in the center. They're living their lives. They're just trying to get through the day.
Right.
And so when you make your films calling them this and calling them bigots and calling them that and whatever else, these people are just trying to get through the day. And
that's right.
And once again, at the end of this broadcast, I want to give the spiritual perspective here. The spiritual perspective is that from a point of judgment and so on, okay, we've seen a lot of that happening where people are telling people that they're bad people and so on, right? And what we want to say is, in terms of self-development, your self-development is at you. Okay? Your self-development is at you. Okay? Very often, the people who are pointing the fingers have a lot of dysfunction within themselves.
And it's a projection.
Yeah, it's usually coming from a position of hate and revenge and anger and so on. I've never seen a really happy woke person.
No, they're very angry, and that is the tenor of the movement. By that same token,
I've also not seen a really happy racist person either on the other side of the spectrum. To be fair, right? And it's always these fringe elements that toxify the hell out of society. And I'm waiting for the day at some point in time when the central people, the people that just want to go to Walmart, want to feed their families, want their children to play in the outside, right? And not be worried about like pedophiles picking them up, etc. and so on. I wonder when the people in the center are going to say, enough of this nonsense. We are done with it. You racist and bigots and so on, go, I don't know, kick rocks, okay? And you woke people, get the hell out of our society. Who the hell do you think you are?
Yeah.
Seriously. So honestly, on both sides of the spectrum, I believe that there's a lot of fault, but with regard to what is about to happen in the US this week, all I could do is pray. Like all I could do is pray for the spiritual folk out there. That is a hard decision that you guys have got to make. If you are going to be voting, right? I know that I probably wouldn't if it was me. And I'll tell you why, because there's no easy answer. You have to vote for what is less evil. And that is not a choice. Because voting for what is less evil means that you're voting for some evil. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
It's a no-win situation. That is my spiel for this episode. Patty, the last word is yours.
Oh, so have we covered recession?
Oh, yeah, that's coming.
Oh, that's all we want to say about the recession. It's coming. Oh, wait. It's here, actually. It's here.
The recession is already here. But it's going to come in such a way that it's going to come in such a way, and you know it's coming because we got gas prices and so on, and everybody's blaming Russia and so on.
Yeah.
We don't want to say too much about that because that's a whole topic in itself because it's here, and you guys.
We'll have to talk about that at some point. Yeah, we'll talk about that maybe next week. But it's in the meantime, it's beginning to look a lot like recession all around. Okay, so all right, I'm going to stop singing. I'm a terrible singer. Can't hold a note. All right, but anyway, so we covered all of that, and so you wanted to wrap it up, have final thoughts. Is that where you want to go with this, David?
Sure.
I really do agree with you that in order for us, like if you look at the macro and the micro, right, it really does begin with us. It begins on the micro. And if we really want to gain our center in the macro, system, then we have to have found it in ourselves. we have to be able to find our center and center ourselves and be able to find the middle ground and detach from all of the systems that kind of want to hook us emotionally and drag us into the fray. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, even if we feel really like I feel very, very strongly about protecting children. So if I'm going to cast a vote, it's going to be anyone who sounds like they're going to do that and my idea of protecting children is to block some of the things that, you know, folks want to do to natural born children. It's like, I don't support that. And so that's my idea of protecting children. So if I'm going to cast a vote, I'll vote in terms of, you know, that. But like overall, I mean, even when we feel really, really strongly about these things and we do our civic duty and vote overall, though, I think for our own mental and spiritual health, we have to first find and maintain our own center. You know, our own center personally, spiritually, you know, what is my center? What is most important to me? What am I doing every day that is about love? Mm-hmm. It's about all of those things I think that the world should be. Love, acceptance, compassion. That's kind of, you know, how am I embodying that in my own life, in my own circles, in my family, with my friends, at work? How am I maintaining it with myself? How am I, you know, loving and being compassionate for myself? So I think that it really does begin there. There's that really wonderful children's church song that I think has so many answers. Sometimes the answers to so much are in these simple little songs. So, you know, I'm going to sing again, David. I apologize in advance. I apologize to our audience in advance. Here goes. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. Isn't that a great song?
It is.
And every word of it, you know, and I'm not going to torture you with singing the rest of the song, but if you actually look up the words, it's really, really beautiful. Every line of that song is really beautiful, and it's kind of like, there it is. There's the answer right there. Wow, you know, in a children's song. So that's kind of those are my final thoughts. I think we are going through some really, really messy, chaotic, confusing times. And I would even say a lot of the messiness and the chaos and the confusion is by design to keep us off center, right? So I think that perhaps the most important thing at this point is to find our center, find what's most important to us, and live, and define living our best lives as being the best human we can be to ourselves and to the people around us.
Agreed at 100%. Well, guys, that has been our show for today. And I guess we will be doing this on a weekly basis. As we said before, we're going to be going live. And so you guys can comment. You can disagree with us, and we will see how those midterms turn out. Join us next week when we continue our coverage of weekly events. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.